At 6:42 a.m., I watched from the kitchen window as the silver BMW sliced across my freshly seeded field again. Dew scattered under its tires like confetti, and my breath caught not from surprise, but from fury. Suddenly, one of them, Jessica, the older Karen's sister, threw a Starbucks cup out the window and laughed. That was the third morning in a row. The dog barked, the fence groaned, and I clenched the mug in my hand until it cracked. But what happened next? That's when I knew they weren't just passing through, they were mocking me.
What?
And when you mock a man on his own land, you don't walk away untouched. You don't drive away either. 3 weeks earlier, it had all started quietly. A shortcut here, a glance there. At first I thought it was an accident, just a wrong turn from the county road. But no. Jessica and her younger sister Brielle knew exactly what they were doing. They lived a mile down, in one of those prefab monstrosities they called a custom-built ranch. When I asked politely for them to stop, Jessica leaned out, her window with mirrored sunglasses, and said, "You don't own nature, old man. I was 41. She called me old. And that was their energy from day one, entitled smug, reckless. But they had no idea what I had already started building. The next day, I tried again. I waved her down near the fence post. She slowed her BMW window halfway down, and I said, "Please stop cutting through my land. That's private property." Jessica chewed her gum and said, "Then fence it," replied, "It is fenced." She smirked, looked over her shoulder at Brielle giggling, and said, "Get a real one." She sped off with a cloud of dust, and that same laugh I'd hear 3 more mornings before things escalated. At that point, it wasn't about the land, it was about respect. I was done asking for it. I tried everything. Signs, chains, even. Stacked a few old bales to block the path. They moved them. I set up motion lights. They smashed them. One morning I left my dog's crate where they usually turn next, thing I knew. They'd run over it and posted a video online. "Farm vibes gone wrong," the caption read. Thousands of likes. I was the joke. But the punchline hadn't landed. Yet, that would come later when they begged me to open the gate. That day, even the wind stood still. I had warned them, but they thought they were untouchable. They didn't realize I had spent the last 6 nights building something better than a fence. I started with stakes, thick steel rods 6 feet apart, just below the soil. I embedded them by hand, one each night. I welded a trench of rebar between them, just under the surface exactly where the tires cut through. The final touch? Spike grid welded from scrap tools and broken harrow teeth, camouflaged under a layer of straw and soil. To anyone else, it looked like a random patch of my farm, but to their BMW, it was a trap. One they'd trigger the very next morning. Still, even then, I left one final warning, a big sign, private property, nitrogen monoxide. Final notice. I watched them drive right past it, laughing again, coffee in hand, engine humming. I never saw it coming. Their front tires hit. First, there was a sound metal grinding rubber, then a hard pop. The car jolted forward, nose-diving slightly. Dale screamed. Jessica swerved left and hit the second spike bed, the rear axle lifting as steel shredded through the underside. The BMW skidded halfway across the field before the engine choked and died. Smoke rose from the hood. My phone buzzed. Motion alert from the security camera. I stepped outside slowly, deliberately. The sisters climbed out, yelling, "What?" "The hell, you'll pay for this." But their voices shook, and they weren't laughing anymore. That was the first time I saw fear in Jessica's eyes. First time she realized this wasn't a game. They tried calling the police. I offered them water. Not because I was kind, but because I knew what was coming. The sheriff arrived 20 minutes later. He stepped out, tipped his hat, and said, "Told y'all 3 times. This man owns this land." Jessica started arguing, waving her acrylic nails, claiming I had set a death trap. The sheriff walked the path, checked the signs, nodded. "This looks like a booby trap to me," he said. "You ignored 4 posted warnings. Ain't much I can do." Turned to me and said, "You pressing charges?" I shook my head. Not. Today I could see the dread in their faces. They knew this wasn't over. When the tow truck came, It couldn't reach the field without using my gate. I left it locked. Jessica begged me, offered cash. "Please," she said. "This is my dad's car." I leaned on the gatepost and said, "Then maybe he should teach you how to read signs." I waited until the sheriff left. Then I walked back inside. But I knew this was just round one. Because 2 hours later, I got a notice taped to my mailbox, a civil claim for vehicle damages. Brielle had filed it. They wanted me to pay for their car repairs. That's when I decided if they wanted war, I'd give them one. On my terms. No one leaves the battlefield with clean hands. The envelope stuck out like a middle finger. Pulled it off the mailbox and read it right there. Dirt still on my boots. Sun barely over the tree line. Notice of civil claim, property damage from the county court. It's filed by Brielle Karen under her full name, Brielle Delaney Winchester. I'd seen that last name on a private school license plate frame once. Daddy's money. Jessica had driven the car, but little sister was playing legal chess. They thought this was checkmate. They hadn't figured out I'd been holding the queen in my back pocket the whole time, so I smiled, walked inside and opened the drawer where I kept the folder labeled contingency. Most people don't plan for war until it's on their doorstep. I started the moment Jessica called me old man. I documented everything, every trespass, every tire track, every bit of trash they threw, security footage time-stamped, phone calls I recorded legally, emails to the sheriff's office, even screenshots of their TikToks and Instagram stories, where they mocked the warnings, showed themselves breaking onto my land, and bragged about it. One caption read, "This old farmer's about to lose his mind, that one would come in handy real soon," because they thought I'd panic and pay up. Instead, I got in my truck, drove straight to my lawyer's office, and slid the file across his desk. "I want to countersue," I said, "and I want to bury them with it." My lawyer, Kenny Rudd, was ex-military with a face like cracked leather, and eyes that had seen worse things than rich girls in BMWs. He looked through the folder and whistled low. They posted themselves breaking the law. I nodded. Multiple times. Kenny flipped to a printed screenshot. "And they're suing you?" I shrugged. "Entitlement's a hell of a drug." He laughed once, then said, "We'll file for trespassing, destruction of property, malicious intent, and harassment. Civil countersuit, plus a request for a protective order. You okay if we make this public?" I said, "I'm counting on it." The Karens were about to learn what happens when the man they mocked knows how to play the long game. I was just getting warmed up. The news broke within 3 days. Small-town media had a field day. Local farmer countersues influencer sisters for trespassing and vandalism. Jessica and Brielle's faces were splashed all over social media again, but this time, not with filters or captions they controlled. Now people were tagging them in comments. "This you?" I really said, "Stay off my lawn." The court date was set for 2 weeks out, but the pressure started building immediately. Their family's law firm issued a weak statement, blaming miscommunication and unintentional encroachment. But then came the footage. I released one clip from my security cam, Jessica throwing a Red Bull into my crops and yelling, "Cry harder." That alone had 600K views by dinner. People were starting to pick sides, and most weren't on theirs. That's when the anonymous threats started. First it was trash in my driveway, then a smashed egg on my barn door. Then someone tried cutting my fence at night, same one. I'd rebuilt twice already. I patched it. Again, added motion sensors, and sat out with the floodlights off, shotgun resting across my knees. Just after 2 a.m., I heard it. Movement. A rustle, and a flash of a hoodie sprinting away as the sensor light popped on. It's too small to be a man, too clumsy to be pro. Probably Brielle, or one of her friends. They wanted to scare me off the case. What they didn't know was that fear had left me a long time ago, back in 2008. When my father died and left me this land with a letter that said protected at all costs. That was the only warning I ever needed. The day before the court hearing, something changed. Jessica showed up on my property on foot this time. No BMW, just herself, oversized sunglasses, and a look I hadn't seen on her face before, uncertainty. "I want to talk," she said. I kept my hands in my pockets and said nothing. Look, I get it, okay? Things got out of hand. She paused, looked around as if the farm itself might hear her shame. We'll drop the claim. Just don't press charges, please. I asked her one question. Why now? She hesitated because people are threatening us. My job's on the line. I got suspended from the agency. She looked down. I didn't think it would get this bad. I told her the truth. It hasn't even started yet. Then I turned and walked back to the house, leaving her in the dust. The courtroom was small but packed. Reporters, locals, some I didn't even recognize. On one side, KennyandI.com, prepared, confident. On the other, the Karen sisters, flanked by two lawyers and their visibly irritated father, who refused to make eye contact with anyone. The judge was an older woman with no tolerance for games. The Karen's lawyer tried playing the sympathy card. Young women, misunderstood, media attack. But when Kenny played the footage of the BMW rolling over signs, laughing, mocking, throwing trash, there was no defense left. The judge looked directly at Jessica. You had multiple chances. You chose to escalate. Mr. Harlow responded legally and documented it. She ruled in our favor. Trespassing confirmed. Harassment proven. I was awarded damages. They were fined and put under a restraining order. We walked out 2 camera flashes and questions. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. Truth was already louder than any TikTok post could ever be. But that night, after the noise faded, I got one last message and email from Brielle. No apology, no guilt, just a threat. This isn't over. That's when I realized something deeper.
This wasn't
just about trespassing anymore. It wasn't even about the land. It was about ego. And wounded pride makes people reckless. I forwarded the email to Kenny. We'll keep the file open, he said. But if they come back, you'll let me know immediately, I replied. I'll know before they get here, because I had just installed cameras in the woods. I wasn't about to be caught off guard not again. A week passed, then another. No sightings. Calls. Quiet. Too quiet. Till the morning of the town's fall festival. I was setting up my stall homegrown tomatoes and wildflower honey when I saw them. Jessica and Brielle, arm in arm, walking through the crowd like nothing had happened, laughing, smiling. Some people greeted them, others didn't, but I watched. I watched the way they looked at my booth, at the people buying from me. Saw the flicker of bitterness in Jessica's face. She hadn't moved on. She was planning something. I could feel it in my bones, and just like before, she'd make the first move. But this time I was ready to finish it. The fall festival ended with a handshake and a sale, but my gut was uneasy. Jessica and Brielle had walked past my booth 3 times, never speaking, just staring. The third time, Brielle took a photo, not of the produce, of me. I didn't flinch, didn't respond. That's what they wanted, a reaction. Something to twist. I just packed up slowly, watching them melt into the crowd like shadows. But I knew that silence wasn't surrender. It was set up. Because when people like them lose publicly, they don't retreat. They scheme. And that night, they reminded me just how far they were willing to go. At 2:47 a.m., I woke to the sound of my dog barking like he'd seen the devil. I grabbed the flashlight, stepped into boots, and walked to the barn. Door slightly ajar, unlocked. That wasn't me. I shined the light inside and felt my chest tighten. My tractor, my 1974 John Deere that I'd rebuilt with my dad, had been keyed across both sides. Deep. Not random scratches. Letters, KRN, carved right into the paint. On the back panel, someone had spray painted "Stay Mad." I didn't call the police. Didn't take a video for TikTok. I walked to the corner, opened the toolbox, and pulled out the old GoPro. Because what they didn't know was I'd mounted it 2 days ago right above the barn loft, pointing down at the entrance. The footage was crystal clear. Hooded figures, 2 of them. One laughing. One whispering, "Hurry up." Brielle's voice. I'd heard it enough to recognize it in my sleep. She held the can. Jessica held the keys. They took selfies, tagged the barn walls, then walked off. Like it was nothing, sent the footage to Kenny with one line, "Now it's personal." By sunrise, we'd filed criminal vandalism charges. But I didn't wait for justice to do its job. I went to the supply store, bought 6 motion detectors, 3 trail cams, a new lock system, and steel brackets. My land was about to become zoos. My land was about to become a fortress. They wouldn't get in again without setting off 100 alarms. But that didn't stop them from trying something even lower. 3 days later, I lost 2 chickens. Just gone. No blood, no prints. Gate closed. I figured it was a fox until I found the collar tag for my dog wedged in the fence post. My dog was fine. Tag must have been ripped off. But it was placed there, deliberately. That's when I knew. This wasn't about the farm anymore. This was psychological. It wanted to rattle me, make me paranoid, break me down piece by piece. What they didn't realize was I'd been broken before. You don't survive burying your parents running a farm alone and fighting off foreclosure without learning how to keep standing in a storm. And this was just wind. The sheriff came out again. He watched the video, took my statement, and sighed. "Look, you got him. We'll press charges. But you might want to consider a no-contact order. These girls ain't wired right," he told him. "I want them to know one thing: every inch they take from me gets paid back double." He nodded. "Just stay legal." Said, "I'm done playing legal. I'm playing smart." And that night, I wrote one thing on a piece of plywood, painted in red: "Enter again, and your next photo will be a mugshot." I posted it at the edge of the old tractor path, the one they used the most. A warning they couldn't ignore. It took 2 days for them to cross the line again. This time, they didn't come themselves. They sent a guy. Tall hoodie, sunglasses, license plate removed. He tried pulling up one of my new motion cams until I hit the siren from the control panel inside the house. He bolted. Didn't even make it to the road before one of my trail cams snapped his face in full detail. I handed the photos to the sheriff. "It's not one of them," he said, "but this ain't random either." I nodded. "Nope. That's a friend of Brielle's. I saw him in a TikTok last month." She tagged him. Now, it was official. The Karens were sending other people to do their dirty work. That changed everything. Kenny moved fast. We added conspiracy to the charges. But more importantly, we issued a direct restraining order, filed, stamped, and delivered. The sisters were legally forbidden to step foot within 50 feet of my land. Violating that would mean jail time, but even with that paper wall, I knew they weren't finished. I kept the floodlights on every night, kept the dog close, and every morning I checked the fence line. I didn't expect gratitude, but I didn't expect what came next either. A letter, handwritten, no return address. Just 2 words: "You'll regret this." At night I sat in the dark, watching the monitor feeds. Camera 4 flickered. Camera 7 cut out. Then came the noise tires skidding on gravel. I grabbed the bat from behind the door. Too fast for the BMW. This was a truck. Highlights. 4 figures jumped out: masks, hoodies, spray cans. They didn't speak, just ran toward the barn. I flipped the floodlight. They froze. 2 ran. 1 tripped. 1 shorter, thinner looked back and screamed, "Hurry!" Dog lunged at the door, barking. I opened it and stepped out with the bat. "Keep running," I shouted. "Cross that line again, and I call this what it is: home invasion." The one who tripped scrambled up and vanished into the night. But I'd already seen enough, and the trail cams had captured everything. The sheriff came again. "This is escalating," he said. "You sure you want to stay on the farm alone?" I nodded. "This is my land. They'll leave before I do." But I added something else. "You might want to talk to the judge about upgrading those charges." This wasn't vandalism. This was organized, he agreed. Within 48 hours, arrest warrants were issued for 2 of the attackers. One was confirmed, a local dropout who'd been seen with Brielle at a party just weeks earlier. I didn't celebrate. I fortified, because something in my gut told me. The sisters weren't going to stop until they hit rock bottom or dragged me there with them. 2 nights later, it happened. The BMW came back. Not through the field, not near the signs. Right down the gravel path, headlights off. It stopped at the base of my drive. Jessica got out, alone, hands up, no phone, no bag, just her. "I want to end this," she said. Didn't move. "Too late for that," I replied. She took a step forward. "Listen, Brielle's out of control." "I didn't know she sent those guys. She's losing it." I tried to stop her. I watched her carefully. "Then why are you here?" Jessica's eyes flashed. "Because she's planning something worse, something you can't fix with lawsuits or fences." I asked her one thing. "Why warn me now?" She looked down. "'Cause I'm scared of what she's going to do next." Jessica stood in the dark, arms shaking, gravel crunching under her boots like broken glass. "She's planning something worse," she said again. I stepped down off the porch, eyes never leaving hers. "Then you better tell me everything." "Now?" Jessica's voice cracked. "She blames you for everything. For the lawsuit, the arrest, the humiliation. She got dropped by her sponsors. People are calling her Barnyard Barbie online. She's not thinking straight anymore." I asked her one thing. "Is she dangerous?" Jessica hesitated for too long. Then softly, "Yes. And if you don't stop her, she's going to burn this place down, literally." I brought Jessica inside, sat her at the kitchen table, and poured black coffee into a chipped mug. She looked out the window like she expected Brielle to be waiting in the trees. She said, "You embarrassed her in front of the world." She said, "If you're going to treat her like a criminal, she might as well act like one." She stole my keys, left 2 nights ago. I haven't seen her since. Felt something drop in my chest. "She's out here now." Jessica nodded. "And she's not alone. She met some guy online. Says he's a freedom fighter or something. It's military anti-government. He's dangerous, too. They're calling it a message. They want to send one." I stood up fast. "Get in the cellar." Jessica flinched. "What?" I pointed toward the hallway. "You want to be safe? You stay underground until I tell you it's over. Go." She hesitated, then ran. I grabbed my rifle, my phone, and my boots. My land stretched 50 acres. Plenty of places to hide, too many places to burn. If Brielle had matches and gasoline, she could do real damage before help ever arrived. I stepped outside. The wind had changed. Thick, hot, wrong. Then I saw it. Smoke, rising slow from the east field. The dry grass. The one patch I hadn't irrigated this week. Flames didn't need a lot to spread. Just a spark and a reason. And she had both. I ran toward the smoke, feet pounding through. Dirt and ash. The fire was small, but growing fast, fed by the breeze and the brittle weeds. Near the edge, I saw movement to figures running. One taller, one with blonde hair glowing in the firelight. Brielle, she turned and saw me. Laughed. Then, threw something glass bottle with a rag tail. Molotov. It hit 10 feet from me. Burst into flame. She screamed over the wind. "I warned you. Should have stayed out of it." I raised the rifle and yelled, "Stop running." The tall guy turned. Something glinted in his hand. Not a gunmetal pipe. He charged. I didn't fire. Not yet. Not until I had no other choice. I backed up, rifle raised, breath tight in my chest. He came fast, swung wide. I ducked, slammed the butt of the rifle into his ribs, hard. He stumbled, dropped the pipe. I kicked it away. "Back off," I roared. Behind me, I heard the sound of tires crunching. A truck. No, sirens, distant but closing in. Someone had called it in. Jessica, smart girl. But this wasn't over yet. I turned to find Brienne. She was gone. Smoke covered her trail like a cloak. I chased after the sound of her feet on gravel, heart racing, adrenaline screaming. She wasn't going far. Not this time. Court hearing came faster than anyone expected. Arson, vandalism, trespassing, attempted assault, conspiracy, and resisting. Arrest. Brielle faced 6 charges. Jessica 1. The judge didn't smile once. Brielle's lawyer tried painting her as misunderstood, a product of online bullying, a young woman pushed too far. But the evidence didn't lie. The photos, the video, the spray-painted tractor, the scorched field, my barn cameras, the pipe, the Molotov. Her fingerprints were on everything like she wanted to be caught. I sat in the back row, boots still caked in soot, arms crossed, watching, listening, waiting for her to say something that resembled truth. No. It never came. Jessica pled guilty to trespassing and obstruction. She got community service, probation, and a no-contact order, Brielle? No plea deal. She went to trial, claimed she was defending her right to walk freely through public land. The jury took 3 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in county prison. No parole for 18 months. Her face barely changed until she looked at Jessica. That's when it cracked. Tears, rage, betrayal. She mouthed something as they cuffed her. You did this. Jessica didn't look back. She just walked out, past reporters, past flashing cameras, straight into the silence of a reality she helped create. After the sentencing, I returned to the farm. Things didn't feel normal. Not yet. Burnt grass still smelled sharp in the wind. Scorched tree bark marked the fire line like a scar. But something had shifted peace for the first time in months. No more late-night cameras. No more motion alerts. No tire tracks through the barley. And the new signs? No one touched them. Because now the story had spread. Everyone in the county knew what happened. Folks started calling it the Carenfield War. A neighbor dropped off a casserole with a sticky note. Thanks for standing your ground. But I wasn't looking for thanks, just space. One morning, a letter came in a plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a folded page, typed short, you didn't win, you just stopped me. No signature. I read it twice, set it down, didn't flinch. Because the person who wrote it wasn't the same anymore. Jail changes people, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But either way, ends the game. I didn't respond, didn't post about it. I just buried the letter under the old oak by the fence line. The same place where they first cut across. Where this whole storm started, the roots were deeper now, stronger. 3 months later, Jessica showed up again, not at my door. At the market, she didn't see me at first. She was helping an old man load pumpkins into his truck, wearing gloves. Smiling small, she looked ... lighter, not innocent, just honest. I walked up behind her. She turned. Her smile faltered. Hey, she said. I nodded. You working here now? She looked down. Part-time. Trying to figure stuff out. I don't want to be here anymore, I asked. Whose idea was the fire? Jessica blinked. Both of ours. But I didn't. Light the match. I paused. You didn't stop her either. She nodded. That's why I'm trying to be different. She looked up at me. Do you think people like us can change? I thought about it, about the charred field. Court, the silence, then said, only if the damage you caused haunts you more than the damage done to you. Jessica exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. Thank you, she said. I didn't say you're welcome, just gave her one last look and walked away. Some stories don't need clean endings. They just need to stop hurting. That night, I checked the cameras one last time. No alerts. Flickering feeds. Just stillness. The farm slept like it used to. I walked the fence line under a full moon. Dogs padded beside me. Wind whispered through the stalks. And in the silence, I realized something simple and brutal. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't explode. It settles. Like dust. Like ash. Like footsteps walking away. I reached the east edge of the property. Looked out over the field where the fire had stopped. New grass was pushing through the black. Tiny blades. Fragile, resilient. I smiled. Not because it was over, but because things were growing again. I found her near the tractor path, the same one where it all started. She was crouched, trying to light another bottle. Her hands shook too much to get the flame going. Drop it, I said, rifle leveled. She froze. For a second, I saw the girl under the makeup, under the hate, just scared, broken. Then her eyes went hard again. "You ruined my life," she spat. "This farm took everything from me." I stepped closer. "You stepped on this land? I gave you warnings. You laughed. You thought the rules didn't apply to you?" She stood, bottle still in hand. "Never did until you made them." Before she could throw it, the red and blue lights hit her face. She turned blinded, dropped the bottle. It rolled harmlessly to the side. Two sheriff's deputies tackled her before she could run again. A tall man was cuffed near the fire line. Jessica emerged from the trees, pale and shaking. I walked past the chaos, past the deputies shouting commands, and stared into the field. Half an acre burned. Could have been worse. Could have taken the barn, the house. But it didn't, because I was ready. Because I knew what they didn't. This land had been fought for long before they were born. The sheriff approached. "We'll hit her with arson, assault, conspiracy, maybe even attempted manslaughter if the DA agrees." I nodded. "She's done." He looked at Brielle, now crying into the dirt. "Done."
Ad!
Jessica walked up quietly.
Ad! I didn't know it would go this far.
"I didn't speak," she added. I think she really believed she could destroy you." I looked out over the scorched earth. She didn't know what roots look like. Things that grow deep don't burn easy. Jessica didn't reply. She just walked back toward the deputy's car, slow and silent. She wasn't a victim anymore, just a sister who watched it all happen. The next day, I repaired the fence for the last time, replaced the burnt signs, painted a new one bigger than the rest. No trespassing. This land fights back. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because people forget. They forget that every inch of this place was earned. That every seed, every stone, every splinter in these walls came with sweat and scars. And that some folks don't just live on their land, they become it. Brielle didn't understand that. But maybe now, behind bars, with the smoke still in her hair. She finally realized one thing. When you try to bury a man on his own farm, you better dig 2 graves. They tell you prison changes you. That's a lie. Prison doesn't change. People, it just strips away whatever mask you were hiding behind. And when the makeup's gone, when your followers stop checking in, when even your sister won't return your letters, you're left with a mirror. And the worst part is, the mirror doesn't lie like you used to. I don't count days anymore. It stopped after the 1/112th. I scratched it into the cement under my bunk. Then I realized counting didn't make the time pass. It just made you feel it heavier. So I stopped. Now I let the noise of the place keep track of time. Metal doors slamming at 6 a.m., trays sliding at noon. Lights off at 10. In between, there's just space. Thought and silence so loud, wraps around your ribs like wire. They put me in a cell with a girl who stabbed her stepdad with a coat hanger. She doesn't talk much, just chews paper and hums church songs. Sometimes I envy her. She doesn't remember what she did. I remember everything. The fence, the signs, his eyes when I threw that bottle, that moment when I thought, this will teach him. But it didn't. It just taught me what a fool looks like on fire. I used to wake up angry at the judge, at the media, at Jessica, but the truth. I was angry at myself, and blaming everyone else was easier, because if I admitted it was all my fault, the trespassing, the lawsuit, the fire, then I'd have to face the fact that I destroyed my own life trying to win a fight that was never mine to start with. The worst day wasn't the day I was sentenced. It was the day Jessica stopped writing. No warning, no letter, just silence. I think she forgave me too soon and then realized I wasn't worth it. I don't blame her. Sometimes I don't think I'm worth it either. I broke things I can't fix, including her. I still remember the sign. The last one he put up. This land fights back. It wasn't just a warning. It was a truth. His farm wasn't just dirt and wood. It was history, line in the ground you didn't cross. And I stomped over it like the world owed me something. All it owed me was consequence, and it paid that debt in full. They say I'll be eligible for parole next year, but I already know what the board will ask me. Are you sorry? And I'll have to lie. Not because I'm not sorry, but because I don't think sorry is enough. Can't pour gasoline on someone's legacy. Light a match and think an apology makes it go away. Sorry doesn't unburn the ground. If I ever leave here, I won't go near that county again. Not because I'm afraid, but because I don't deserve to see the green growing where I left black. That field deserves better eyes watching it now. Some nights, I dream I'm still running. Through his field, through fire, but the gate never opens. I just keep running in circles. And maybe that's the truest sentence I'll ever serve.